and welcome to Cheers to Fears, where we take horror films and turn them into drinking games. We're your two hosts. I'm Tucker.
And I'm Alex. Today we are going to be making a drinking game for Scream 2, written and directed by the same people that brought us the first Scream, Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson, respectively.
In Scream 2, Sidney goes to college, but murders from the new movie called Stab cause everybody to follow Sidney, including Dewey, and even Gail, who is now famous for writing her own book on the first movie. Sidney is at times finding it difficult to adjust to college life, and also finding difficulties trusting her closest friends as the death toll starts to rise.
Before we move on to breaking down the rules, we will warn you that spoilers are just around the corner, so we recommend you pause the video and watch the movie now with our drinking rules posted on screen. We also recommend you watch the first movie as well. With that out of the way, let's go down to the rules.
As always, the first rule is death, and this time it resulted in 13 sips. And just a reminder, we're still counting fake outs just like we did for the first game, so the numbers will be a little bit inflated for the actual death toll, but like I said in the first one, we always want to put ourselves in the first watch mentality, so that's why we do it.
Yeah, and in saying that, Randy, I guess, was right, because he said that there would be more deaths in the sequel, and there definitely is more deaths in this movie.
Him included.
Yeah.
Number 1, the body count is always bigger. Number 2, the death scenes are always much more elaborate. More blood, more gore. Carnage, candy. Your core audience just expects it.
And that moves on to rule numbers 2, screams, cries, or yells. And just like the sequel, there's more in this movie.
Yep, and that resulted in 26 drinks, which again is quite a bit. Another rule that we're bringing back, which didn't happen nearly as much this time, is whenever there's a horror trope, the movie's being meta or self-aware, you gotta take a drink. And this time it only ended in 15 drinks.
Are you suggesting that someone's trying to make a real-life sequel?
Stab 2? Who'd want to do that? Sequels suck.
No, wow. Come on, man. Oh, please. By definition alone, they're inferior films.
Whenever there's a phone call is the next rule, and for that rule we had 14 sips.
Yeah, there's still quite a few for this rule, and it was quite inflated due to some of the scenes, such as when the killer calls Randy, for example.
Everyone has a cell phone, so he's just checking every cell phone that he sees.
Yeah, exactly. So it is inflated due to that reasoning a little bit. Anyways, moving on to the next rule, which is another rule we're bringing back from the first one. It's the ghost face mask. Whenever you see it, you gotta take a drink. And this resulted in 33 sips. It's another high one, just like the last one. It's worth mentioning in the opening scene, the movie theater gave us 20 drinks alone. So that made up for most of it, like 2/3 of it basically. So the movie theater was not kind in that regard. And it's the highest count for this drinking game in terms of rules.
Oh, definitely. I'm honestly surprised that it was just so much. I guess I kind of forgot about the whole movie theater scene, and that alone just killed it, I think.
Well, yeah, it was mercied like 5 times because it kept going there and then cutting to a new scene and then cutting back. So like so many times where it was mercied. Every time it was mercied.
Next, we have another rule returning, which is whenever there's a horror character or horror title mentioned by name, that's a sip.
Name one.
Yeah. Aliens. Far better than the first.
Yeah, well, there's no accounting for taste.
Thank you, Ridley Scott rules. Name another.
No. Aliens is a classic, okay?
That equaled 9 sips in this movie.
Yeah, it was a lot less this time around than it was in the first one. If there was more Randy in the movie, then maybe it would have been higher, because he seems to be the one that has a lot of horror knowledge from the characters. But yeah, he didn't survive the whole thing, so that's probably why it was less. Anyways, moving on to the last rule that we have returning, it's whenever the character that previously died is mentioned. This happened 12 times this time around.
Could say what happened in that theater is a direct result of the movie itself.
That is so moral majority. You can't blame real-life violence on entertainment.
Honestly, we're kind of surprised that we left this rule in. We did include people dying in the first movie as well, so just a reminder that whenever you hear somebody like Billy's name or Stu's name, you have to take a sip for that as well. Now on to an exclusive rule that we have for this movie is whenever the movie Stab is talked about or mentioned, such as just seeing a poster, for instance. This equaled 13 sips.
Yeah, so whenever you see the poster, like you said, or somebody says it by name, whatever, anytime it's said or seen, you gotta take a drink.
Thank you.
Hi, here you go. What's this? Stab souvenirs the studio sent them. And it's white. Thanks.
That's all there is to say about that rule, so we'll move on to rule number 9, which is whenever somebody talks about Gail's book, and this resulted in 9 sips.
No, just 1 second. I know you probably get this all the time, but I just wanted to say I'm such a big fan of your work. I just finished your book. I couldn't put it down. Insightful, probing. I just really, really loved your book.
Thank you.
Sure.
The thing about Gail's book is that I feel like it proves that she's very selfish in nature, what it seems like. Just making the book alone, it seems like she burned a lot of bridges with people that, for the most part, liked her at the end of the film.
Yeah, and that's kind of how her character was from the first one and still carries on, and it just kind of it shows her true colors even more in this film, I guess.
Yeah. And the last and final rule for this movie is you take a sip whenever Joel mentions how insecure he is about his job and wants to quit. That came to a total of 5 sips.
Yeah, all I can say is he's a smart man.
Yes.
Yeah. I have to be honest with you. I'm not cut out for this. I mean, I was brought here to do an interview, not Faces of Death 14.
So moving on to the totals for this movie, it gave us 149 sips, which is the equivalent of drinking 5 drinks based on our 30 sip per can scale. So it's a little less than the previous movie, but it's still a good amount of drinks.
Oh yeah, good would be polite and explained. 5, I'd say, is pretty long for a 2-hour movie for the most part.
Oh yeah.
I guess there's some scenes that were a lot worse than others. Obviously, a lot of the theater scenes were pretty bad because
it starts out strong.
It starts out very strong, I'd say. Also, there was the one scene where Randy was getting murdered. There was a lot of phone calls in that scene that was mercied as well.
Yeah.
So there was definitely a few scenes that were mercied.
Oh yeah. So we already mentioned how the theater scene was bad for drinking, and it's also bad for continuity. And I'm not sure if it was an intentional choice to be, meta or self-aware, but when Maureen asks for a medium popcorn and a small Diet Pepsi...
Hi. Can I have a medium popcorn, no butter, and a small Diet Pepsi?
You got it.
She walks away with like a 6-liter tub of popcorn and like a liter of Pepsi. It's definitely not medium or small sizes at all. So I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it definitely stuck out.
Yeah, but the thing about that is, I guess they have a lot of product placement as well. Like she asked for like a Diet Pepsi or something.
Yeah.
And then like even Pepsi like sponsorship or like any sort of like Pepsi logo you see would have even been a good rule itself. I feel like they had like some sort of deal with Pepsi, or maybe they were making fun of it, which is awful because they can do that and get away with it because the movie's supposed to be meta.
Yeah, true. And just one more thing to mention about the opening scene. It's extremely improbable considering the killer stabbed Phil through his ear, also through the bathroom stall. So like it's obviously not very likely that could happen.
Yeah, it's not only the fact that he stabbed him through the bathroom wall, which is, you can kind of see it if it's like thin walls or whatever, but it's just a thing that the killer hit him in the exact right spot.
Oh yeah.
So that's the one thing that's off, I would say.
Yeah, and that scene in particular is one that I always think of Scary Movie about.
Oh yeah.
Because, I don't think we need to say what it is that gets stabbed in the ear, but let's just say it's a glory hole involved. So I always think of that when I see it.
Yes.
But anyways, moving on.
So as a sequel, I feel like it could have been a little bit more self-aware, especially if that's what they're going for. So for instance, Randy could have said something like, oh, Sydney won't die in this movie, or like won't die because she's the main character at this point. And then I feel like he could have mentioned like in other movies where people die, such as like Halloween 4 where Laurie Strode dies, or like Friday the 13th Part 2.
Yeah, I do agree with you. They did do a lot of self-referential stuff, like linking it to the first one or bringing up points about the first one, but it wasn't nearly as often as the first one. So yeah, I get what you're saying, because that's kind of what Scream is known for, so it would have been nice to see a little bit more, but yeah.
Instead, they replaced it with very odd scenes, such as like Derek singing I Think I Love You, which there was also more Pepsi product placement.
Yeah.
So just some of the scenes just did not work for me at all.
Yeah, that's fair. One thing I did like about this movie, though, is Gail and her dynamic. Like, her as a character, she didn't really change. She just kind of exaggerated who she already was.
Yeah.
Like in the first one, a lot of the students, she says they're the ones who watch her show, so they really like her. But I feel like in this one, they kind of know who she is as an actual person because of the book she wrote, and like everybody kind of hates her at this point, and like she's still kind of leaning into it. Something that Sydney did in this one again that she did in the first one was punch Gail, so that was kind of nice to see. She kind of gets what she deserves in a sense. But she did have a character arc where like she started to be this character where everyone hated her, and then near the end she kind of almost becomes like a good person, I guess.
Yeah.
And like, she helps out with people.
Brilliant Gail Weathers performance. There are no cameras here. I just want to find this fucker. I really do.
And in the beginning, you can kind of see like all the reporters hounding her because of the book she released, and like she got famous. And it's kind of what she was doing in the first one.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like karma, you know, it goes full circle. But then in the end is when she starts seeking out actual relationships with the characters, like going to the hospital with Dewey, for example, rather than like just looking for a good story, I guess.
Yeah. One more way that they were kind of self-referential in this movie is in the first movie that Sydney said she'd probably get played by like Tori Spelling or someone like that, and that's exactly who she gets played by in this movie.
Yeah. Well, it was in Stab, right?
It was in Stab, yeah.
So she negatively said that Tori Spelling would be playing her, like as if it was a bad thing, and then like that's what happened in Stab, and I thought that was funny. That might have been my favorite part, where they were self-aware and self-referential. At least they tied it into the first one.
Yeah.
Play this young girl, Sydney Prescott, who discovers that her boyfriend's this crazy serial killer who also killed her mother the year before that.
So what kind of research did you do for the part?
I don't get it. They get Tori Spelling to play Sid, and they cast Joe Blow Nobody to play me.
The thing that I have about Tori Spelling's character is there was the interview where she was being interviewed by like a journalist or somebody, and she ruins the twist of the movie that Billy was the killer. I understand that in this universe it's like it actually happened, but the fact that she ruined the movie, I'd still be upset about her.
Yeah. And just another thing about Stab, I guess. How are the people, like the audience watching Stab, for example, not filing a civil suit against the creators of it?
Yeah.
Because, like, there's definitely something to claim there.
Yeah, it basically just goes around glorifying, like, the death that happened to Sydney and her mom. So I feel like she should get basically some endorsement, or definitely a cut of that pie for sure. And even if so, like, at the end of the movie, where it happens all over again, probably because of the movie, there would definitely be something to claim there.
Oh yeah.
One more thing that I did find interesting about the film that they brought new to the table is they developed Cotton's character, which I found was good, rather. Yeah. I just really like that he wasn't forgotten about.
Yeah, I agree.
So, I like the scenes where it showed him stalking Sydney in the library and like him getting in trouble. Yeah. Which is super suspicious, so they took him into jail. Well, I guess into questioning.
Yeah.
And then in the very end, he was also redeemed by killing Mrs. Loomis.
Yeah. His character was interesting because obviously it was revealed that he was falsely imprisoned for a year, so like you feel bad for him for that sense, but then he's also just being a weirdo and just really trying to get his 15 minutes of fame, trying to get an interview, you know, throughout the whole movie. But yeah, ultimately you kind of like him as a character, I would say, even though he does these weird things, but in the end he kind of redeems himself, like you said.
I guess speaking of Mrs. Loomis, I guess it's an appropriate time to say that I did not like the killers this time in the movie.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. I didn't like them as much as the first movie for sure, but I didn't think negatively of it by any means.
My main reason for it is there was I feel like no evidence to possibly point to the, I don't even remember what her alias was, but Billy's mother being Mrs. Loomis. I feel like there was no evidence for that. Furthermore, I honestly didn't remember the other character's name. Like the other killer, I feel like it just didn't make sense.
Yeah, he was one of the like friends or people that went to school, but yeah,
he was in so little of the movie though.
Yeah, I do agree with that point. But for Mrs. Loomis, for me, I wasn't mad at that decision just because like she was seen in the movie. Like you said, they didn't really give us any evidence that it was Billy's mom. She was just pretending to be a reporter. But I didn't dislike that reveal just because it still tied in with the first one, and she kind of had a decent motive, you know, because her son was killed by Sydney, so she wants to get revenge on her. So I did like it for that reason.
My motive isn't as 90s as Mickey's. Mine is just good old-fashioned revenge. You killed my son. And now I kill you, and I can't think of anything more rational.
But with the other guy, I get what you're saying, how I wish we saw more of him throughout the movie because, yeah, we didn't really get to know why he did it. He even said that he didn't really have a motive. He was just going to do it, and he already had his story planned out on what he would tell the cops.
Yeah.
No. Billy was a sick fuck who tried to get away with it. Mickey is a sick fuck who wants to get caught. Yeah. See, I've got my whole defense planned out. I'm gonna blame the movies.
So now that that's all out of the way, what were your overall thoughts on this movie?
I thought it was a fine sequel for the most part. I don't think it really held a candle up to the first one, but I think it was definitely enjoyable. Like, I'd say better than a lot of the Halloween sequels for sure if we're comparing it to that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I agree. I thought it was a good sequel. It sounds like I maybe liked it a little bit more than you. Obviously, it still doesn't hold any water to the first one. The first one's pretty much untouchable because it's a new original idea in a way. This one's just kind of a sequel, so it's copying an already formed idea. But I think they did a decent enough job of tying it into the first one and making it connected in a lot of ways while still kind of having a different story, but it still felt like a Scream movie.
Oh yeah. Like, I will say that I didn't hate the movie by any means.
No.
Like, it was by far, like, very rewatchable for the most part.
Oh yeah.
And now that leads us into the Darwin Awards, where we award one not-so-lucky nominee the Darwin Award. This award can be given to a character that made a stupid decision that resulted in them getting killed, somebody else getting killed, or simply resulting in something bad happening that could have been easily avoided. This award can also be given to a character that is just plain dumb. Here are the nominees.
Today's first nominee is Cece, for running upstairs instead of out the front door. She fell to her death, so that in itself shows why running upstairs is a bad idea.
Next is Sydney, for not revealing the face of the killer or killing Ghostface when he was unconscious and in front of her. The final nominee today is Randy, for backing up into a location where the killer could be hiding and splitting off from the rest of the group.
And the winner is Cece, for not running out of the house to get help, but instead running into a dead end, sealing her fate.
And with all that being said, we hope you enjoyed our look into Scream 2. If you end up playing the game alongside the movie, or if you have any other feedback or suggestions, let us know in the comments below. Also let us know in the comments if this sequel holds up to you.
Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss tomorrow's episode, where we are going to be making a drinking game for Scream 3. If you want to check out our most recent video on Scream, click on the box on the top right. Or if you want to see a playlist of all the drinking games and movies we review, click on the box below it. Thanks for tuning in, and this is us saying cheers to fears.